Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel. I am Rick Walker. Quite a news day today. Feels a little weird. It's a weird world. I wake up in the morning now sometimes and I think, I'm just going to pretend everything is normal. But it isn't. I suppose that's because we're caught in the fog of war, information warfare. And it's a real war. We are in the middle of World War III. Tonight we're going to talk about Benjamin Netanyahu's tragic mistake. Those are his words. I was thinking before he said them that this was a huge mistake. That's why it says that in the thumbnail tonight, because I created that before he said it was a tragic mistake. A mistake, for sure. This whole thing in Rafah, I said from the beginning, they shouldn't go in heavy into Gaza the way that they did. A trap it is, a trap it was, a trap it still is, and he just doesn't seem to learn. We'll talk a little bit about that tonight. The ramifications of that. Artificial intelligence. That was the topic during a special session up in Ottawa today. Anita Anand from the federal government participating in that. We'll tell you what that's all about. And it does tie into a lot of what we're talking about tonight, which is information warfare, propaganda, social media, patriotism, how governments manufacture consent for war. And what are we witnessing? We're witnessing just stupidity. Plus, the World Health Organization fails, at least so far, to ratify a pandemic treaty. I know a lot of people very worried about that, but it hasn't happened. They've been negotiating this, all these countries, but did not come to pass. Nevertheless, Dr. Tedros says that he is still optimistic or confident that an agreement will be reached. It's just that now it could take another 5 months, up to maybe another 24 months, or maybe years, but they're not giving up, and I will show you what that's about as well tonight. North Korea plans to launch a rocket into orbit to carry a spy satellite into space. We'll update you on what's going on with the University of Toronto Palestine encampment. Negotiations have been happening there. Sophie Gregoire Trudeau says, well, she's opened up and is talking about bulimia. Didn't know she had bulimia or suffered from that, but we'll talk about that too a bit. And the back and forth, again, propaganda between Russia, Ukraine, Kharkiv. Was that a missile strike on a shopping center? Was Vladimir Zelensky in a studio, or was he really on location shooting something for a promotional video or a propaganda video, however you want to talk about it? One way or another, what we're talking about here is that peace summit coming up in Switzerland next month. I'll show you what that's about too. Talk about it a bit. And then we're going to look also into the past to look at a time that seemed to make more sense, but maybe the past made less sense. We just thought it made more sense, and I'll explain that as well. Plus, Alex Jones goes to war against RFK Jr. All that and more coming up right here on the Maverick News Channel. So don't go away. I'll be right back.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom. Maverick News. The world is watching.
All right, I'm back. So, where should we start? How about, well, Dragon's not there at the moment, but we do have this video from McGill University, Montreal, tonight, or today. This is what it looked like there today. We'll just start with this, just because I'm going to remove the audio because there is music on this. It's produced, but it's just a single shot, so I think it's safe to run it. And there you see, so I'm told this is McGill University today. Palestine flag being huge, and there's Benjamin Netenyahu in what appears to be a cardboard cutout, sort of a cardboard effigy, with him hanging by the neck. Welcome to Canada. Your country has changed and continues to change, like it or not. Speaking of change, this is happening today as well. Migrant Rights Network. This guy's name is Syed Hussan. He says there are as many as 500,000 illegal immigrants in Canada right now, residing here. And he says at a news conference today that all of them should be given permanent residency. I'll let this roll. As I say, the country is changing, and quickly.
I wonder if I could ask if any of you have an estimate of how many people are undocumented in Canada and how many you anticipate might want to apply if a program is opened.
One of the major concerns is that there is no good estimates of how many undocumented people there are. The range estimate is from 20,000 to 500,000. We believe that for this reason, a program should be broad and inclusive to allow people to come out from the shadows and enter the family of rights by applying for permanent residency. Instead of trying to determine caps at this point, it is crucial that that we understand that this is about equality and fairness. And anyone, if there's some people who are excluded, then that's not equality, that's just discrimination.
What? I'm speechless. It's discrimination to, if you're here illegally, it's discrimination if you don't give someone permanent residency and then of course a path to citizen, but they're here illegally, up to 500,000 people. So you have to, I don't get it. Just from a legal standpoint alone, I don't get that at all. I don't see how that's just, it's, wow. They're liberalizing the immigration laws. We've seen it earlier this week. What was the other law? Just off the top of my head. I'll have to look it up. They were fast tracking citizenship as well. I'll have to look. There was another piece of legislation or law that it passed in front of me this week. There was a news conference. I don't remember. I'll find it here before the end of the broadcast. That one too made me kind of open my eyes and say, what the heck are they doing up there in Ottawa with their immigration policies? It defies logic, but I'll get to that. I don't want to get it wrong, so I'll look it up. So yeah, all that happened, and then today also Canada has pledged that they're going to give a lot more visas to Gazans because of Israel's military offensive in Gaza, and specifically today because of these deaths in Rafah, where we've seen video of, I guess, as many as I'm hearing anywhere from 35 to 45 people killed and others injured in Rafah, where Israel was ordered by the World Court not to proceed to end its military offensive there immediately, and Israel ignoring the World Court. And now Benjamin Netenyahu has a public relations information warfare disaster on his hands, and I think he probably still doesn't realize it. I mean, I have to tell you, this guy does not learn. This is the dumbest, stupidest, most, you know what I really wanted to put on the thumbnail tonight? I wanted to put his picture on it and the word, just one word, idiot. Just the word idiot. He's got to be. He's just so arrogantly and so supremely overconfident, and he's got to be sick. There's something wrong here. This guy just doesn't get it. As I said from the beginning, man, you go in, you might win on the ground, and from a military standpoint, you might clear out whole areas, but you're gonna lose. If you win, you lose. This whole thing was just a trap, and it was stupid, and he's taken the bait, and innocent people are paying the price. And I said as well, the Hamas is also to blame here because they don't care. They knew after October 7th that they would get this kind of reaction, and they're using those children and other civilians, adults, as not just human shields, but as, more importantly, martyrs. Does Netanyahu not get this? Do these people not get this? They have been live streaming constantly. There have been multiple live streams coming out of Gaza constantly. Why is that? They're just waiting. They've just been waiting for the attack from Israel. So why? So they can show it to the world. It's not just a form of defense, these video feeds and the videos that are being shot and produced. It's not just a form of defense. It's an offensive weapon in the war of information that we're now immersed in, this whirlwind of information warfare. Hasn't he figured that out? Haven't people figured this out yet? This is what Hamas is using as a tool to win. And they are winning. It might look like they're losing. No, they're winning. They're winning this war. Hamas is winning this because they're winning in the court of public opinion. And so ultimately they will get what they want, whatever that is. And we're seeing more countries come on board. They're more sympathetic. They are recognizing Palestine as a state, which, fine. However this plays out, whatever gets us to peace, I'm kind of cool with it because the fighting has to stop. These massacres have to stop on both sides. Hamas, Iran, much better at the information warfare game. They've been investing heavily in it. Israel, they suck at it. I don't think they're paying enough attention to it, any at all. Barely. The West, too. People are like, oh, the CIA is the master. No, they're not. No, they're not. The West sucks at it, too. Ukraine sucks at it. We're going to talk about all of this tonight. Hamas, Iran, Russia, they're winning. They're winning the social media game, the information warfare game. Oh, yes, they are. They're good at it. And it's the most important part of this war. By far. By far. One of the reasons is, I'll just come right out and say it, the people on the other side, they're so afraid, they're paranoid, they won't even talk to some people online. They're just plain afraid. It's just such a low trust environment that I see it within the freedom movement too. It's like, oh, you talk to Joe. Joe's on that side. I'm not going to talk to you then. So it's not so much childish. It's just absolute hyper paranoia. Like, I can't talk to that guy because he talked to so and so, so he must be an agent of the Russians or whatever. I don't know. All right. I'm just telling you, man. So it's hard to sit in this chair and drive down the middle of the road because you know why? People in the middle of the road get run over. You're being forced to pick a side. If you stand in the middle of the road, like me, you're going to get run over every damn night these days. So much for impartial journalism. It's pretty tough to stand out here and be try and be at least provide some balance. I'm getting a little off the track here. It just sticks in my craw. Wow. So yeah, Canada's gonna issue an additional 5,000 visas for Gaza residents as a result of all of this stuff going on. And part of the information war is showing that video. Like that's the biggest thing, because that's what generates the public sympathy. And so even yesterday, I haven't shown too much video out of there because so much of it is so graphic. Some of it has been altered that I've seen. Some of it is fabricated, and some of it appears to be 100% authentic. So let me show you. Where did my video go from Rafah? That would be easy enough for me to pull it up here again. So yeah, I've seen some stuff that is definitely fake. Some of it that is real. And yeah, this stuff's all altered with music. I could show you some of it just to make the point, but maybe I will. I mean, I don't know. Like some of this stuff that's circulating online, folks, honestly, I can't tell how much weight to give it or how authentic it is. So here I'm going to show you. And maybe you're noticing this as well, okay? So there's definitely some. Here's just a Twitter feed, X. And so here's some guy posting Uri Kurlianchik. In case you're wondering why the crying around the Rafah massacre, he says, suddenly changed his tone, it's because two facts came to light. A, the attack didn't take place inside the safe zone, but almost a mile away. And B, the fire was caused by a nearby Jeep loaded with explosives. Is that true? I don't know. So here's video of fire, apparently. Is that all real? I don't know. I guess. It's on the other side of the world, man. We're being told that that's what it is. I guess that's it.
مش مخزن سيارة فيها سلاح فيها رصاص وفيها سلاح وفيها موضوع جيب ها لمين بده يكون يعني.
Okay, enough of that. I do know this, like, there's an admission here now that, yeah, people were killed, and here's the video that really has been making the rounds. I've got this one now. This is the one I originally had queued up. I stumbled on that other one just now. And so this is the video that's getting the most attention, and it's just in silhouette. There's nothing too graphic here, but still be forewarned, this is war footage, apparently. Here you go. And again, see, they're adding music, production value to it to tug at your heartstrings, right? I muted the music for you. But so just to add emotional impact and get you jacked up. So this video, you know, it's authentic, but being used as part of the whole campaign, right? Okay, enough of that for the moment. And that is what this is about. This is about information warfare. So Netenyahu tonight calling this a tragic mistake was made. Let me see if I have this again for you. What a dumb thing to do. You know, it's, if you could you just shoot yourself in the foot any more times and still not figure out that you shouldn't be pointing down? And maybe you should just holster that thing. He says it was a tragic mistake. No kidding, eh? Yeah, and I think he delivered that address. I don't think he gave an English version of it. Here's so I've got this, but I don't think this is not in English. What he had to say about it. Yeah, I'll run it though.
אני עומד בלחצים מבית ומחוץ, ואני עומד על האינטרסים הלאומיים שלנו מתוך אחריות לאומית. ולכן אני אומר לכם ביושר, אין...
Okay, so I'm not going to run that whole thing because he's not speaking English, and of course we have a almost 100% English audience, so I just don't know. Anyway, you slice this, it's a disaster. And then I'm seeing, protests. So this apparently is happening right now in Spain, apparently. Is this real? It appears to be. Is it accurate? Is it current? Maybe, I suppose. I'll just have to take the poster's word for it. Okay, so you tell me who's winning. Okay, who's winning? Who's winning this battle? Pretty clear to me who's winning. You know, in Gaza, the entire strategy has really, so far, I would say failed, because you have people who have been sort of pushed out, Palestinians, and where the Israelis went in and sort of cleansed areas or cleaned out Hamas. People have moved back in. They've got more problems back there. They don't seem to be able to find the Hamas leaders that they've been trying to find. They're saying they're using precision weapons to target Hamas. But what we've seen in Rafah suggests that maybe the munitions that were used here were not high precision. Obviously, if you're killing some 40-some people, it would indicate that maybe not. I can't say with any certainty. But there's way more footage out there. Some of it definitely fake. Some of it appears to be real and authentic, of the victims. And that stuff has been embraced as authentic by even mainstream media, much of it around the world. And so that stuff's making the rounds. And of course, that's generating huge sympathy, support for the Palestinian side, and disdain for Netanyahu and Israel. It is damaging it has damaged Israel's image worldwide. Again, this whole thing, really stupid. Bad strategy. And as I've said also from the very beginning, I've seen war crimes on both sides. So damaging to Israel's image and reputation has this been that the propaganda coming back from the Hamas side, where I've seen talk shows with pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas media influencers sitting there saying that October 7th basically didn't even happen. And people are believing it. And that is an outright lie too. That's a lie. And they're sitting there saying, nope, the Hamas didn't kill anybody. Israelis did it all on their own, or Israel is responsible for the attack. And again, I mean, the logic behind that is also stupid and yet highly effective when coupled with an information warfare campaign. Who conducted the attack? It was horrific. It was not, that attack on October 7th was an attack against civilians, and it was widespread, and they went in there, and they were not targeting armed soldiers. They were targeting unarmed people and trying to inflict as much damage and spread as much death as they possibly could in an absolute act of terrorism. Now, what came after is also inexcusable. Even though Hamas is using those people as human shields and martyring them, it does not give Israel the right to go in and slaughter people. So I've said from the beginning, there are war crimes on both sides. And these people need to be very careful. And that is why tonight, when we are seeing, more support now even than there was before for the arrest of Benjamin Netanyahu and the execution of not just the arrest warrant, but to put him on trial for war crimes. It's not surprising. And I am seeing, that on that side on the Palestinian side and on the, people are coming right out and saying that they see that these guys should be tried in sort of like a Nuremberg 2.0 trial through the ICC, the ICJ, the World Court. The United States saying that they don't recognize the authority of the court. But you know what? I said before, all these things that people are talking about, when they say Nuremberg 2.0, even when they're talking about Trudeau and the pandemic and all of that stuff, this is where it's going. And as all of these events progress, it gives more legitimacy through public support to the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice in The Hague, which are bodies that up until now have largely been toothless. But you get enough public support behind an international body like that, which has no enforcement mechanism, and it would be the people ultimately that would be the driving force and the enforcement body behind the decrees and the decisions that these courts hand down. Canada is actually a signatory to it and is bound by it, or it apparently is supposed to be bound by it. We'll see, because there are some people who have initiated legal action to have him arrested too. Although the ICC and the ICJ, to my knowledge so far, that they've not come right out and issued arrest warrants for Trudeau. We'll see what happens. Times are changing. All of that ties right into all this anti-colonialism ideology that has been taught in our universities. That's why you're seeing all this protesting, all these encampments on universities, at universities across Canada and the United States and in other countries as well. And we're seeing, well, I just showed you McGill, where things seem to be escalating to some degree. And at the University of Toronto, they have now filed for a court injunction to evict the pro-Palestinian encampers on the school's downtown campus. Now, the media is saying that these are student-led demonstrations. I think it's a mix. You have some students and you have some outside, I would say, probably professional, or at least regular protesters, helping to keep these things going. University of Toronto President Maverick posted today and said that the school's lawyers have requested the Ontario Superior Court of Justice hear the request for an injunction, and he wants that process expedited. Now, the university has been engaged in negotiations with these encampment occupiers, if you want to call them that. So they're peaceful protesters, yeah, but they're occupying. And they're restricting access, and they are causing a lot of disruption, to say the least, and I would say even going beyond that. And so, police are keeping an eye on the situation there. And the people in the camp have been served with a trespass notice. That came last week. And the university has vowed to take all necessary legal steps to clear that encampment out. But it is taking time because they now have a foothold. They say they're determined to stay there. They've been calling for divestment. They want, like at all these other protests, they want all money pulled, all university investments, like in pension funds and other investments used to fund university programs and operations. They want that pulled from any corporations, companies that are tied to Israel or the military-industrial complex. Even though the university has come out and stated at the University of Toronto that they don't have investments as described by the protesters. They don't have investments with companies tied to the military-industrial complex, at least not in the way that it's being characterized in these demands. None of that seems to matter. They're dug in, and the university says it has now suffered irreparable harm. In the notice of motion, it says that since the start of the encampment, community members have reported violence, harmful and discriminatory speech, and damage to the university's property. Vandalism. Yep. The document says, quote, members of the university community and the public have expressed serious concerns to the university about their health, safety, security, well-being, and freedom of speech and expression as a result of the encampment. And we have seen that right here with Dragon at McGill University, where his access restricted, prevented. He wasn't allowed to venture onto some areas on the front lawn of the university there, which is a common area open to the public, but not with those encampments there. Nope, they've seized control. The document continues and says the university has and will continue to suffer irreparable harm if the occupation and encampment are permitted to continue. It names 10 different demonstrators in this request for an injunction. 6 of them are identified as University of Toronto students. 2 are believed to be students, and 2 others have been vocal about the encampment in media interviews and on social media. And so this document goes on and makes this claim as well. It says that community members from the university have seen, quote, deeply disturbing language in or around the encampment that includes messages such as Zionists go back to Europe. And this is an important quotation. It says, glory to the martyrs. And also, quote, burn Tel Aviv down. And the university also estimates that it could take anywhere from a month to 6 weeks to repair all of the damage from the vandalism and from the occupation. So big bill coming that will need to be paid. By whom? Will the protesters pay for that? Highly unlikely. And the Minister of Colleges and Universities in Ontario says that that encampment must be cleaned up. But they've got a foothold and they have been negotiating, which gives them credibility and further entrenches them, honestly. So now they've got a bigger problem on their hands. How will they deal with it? Time will tell. Seems to me that so often with protests like this, what the protesters often want is they actually want the cops to come in and bust it up so that they can do what? Exactly what I've been talking about. So that they can capture it all on video, play the victim, and use that as a public relations information warfare weapon. It's propaganda. They get to martyr themselves. They get more street cred, and it generates public sympathy. I'll be right back.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
And over in Amsterdam, you get this with these pro-Palestinian protesters. Wow. I don't know. And this is, I don't think this is, yeah, well, I don't know. I don't think this is from today, but this is, no, I'm not going to run that. It's too old. Okay, so we'll come back to this over here. I just want to move on because I wanted to show you this. Now, talking about information warfare. Okay, this is the opposite side of the information battle. I came across this, and this is why Twitter, X, has turned into an information cesspool. I mean, it's just a dumping ground for everything. It's not about, I don't know if what I'm about to show you goes beyond free speech. This is malicious information. This is people trying to mislead the public. Because this is a post that says that protests have erupted in Istanbul where they're burning the Israeli consulate down. Okay? And this is brand new post just within the last couple of hours. I'll show you the footage and then I'll explain what I'm talking about. So this is the Israeli consulate in Istanbul. This apparently is supposed to be a response to the assault in Rafah. Just one problem, okay? Well, I'll tell you what the problem is. So here's a Chinese media outlet talking about this as well. China Daily. Here it is. Protests erupt in Istanbul against Israeli bombing of civilians. And so if you then go into a Google search looking for information on that fire at the Israeli consulate in Istanbul, this article comes up and is sort of connected to that video. But the problem, here's the problem. This didn't happen today. This is old footage from, oh my goodness, 7 months or a year ago. They didn't burn the building to the ground. The fire was actually outside, as I understand it, but it's not new. It's old footage being recycled, and people are being told online that they are burning the Israeli consulate down to show how upset people are with what happened in Rafah. But it's not true. It's old news recycled and taken completely out of context. But how many people are seeing that? Thousands, if not millions, around the world tonight. And that's on Twitter, X, where again I say that the whole platform there has just become a cesspool. It's gross. It's screwing with people's minds, including mine, everybody, because you can't tell what's real anymore. And but it illustrates something very important. Okay, everybody who hates Israel and everybody who hates the Jews these days, they've all latched onto the narrative that the Jews are basically to blame for everything from high interest rates and inflation to the pandemic and everything in between. And that they are manipulating us, and the reason we're in all these wars is because the Jews control the media. But it isn't really entirely true. It's not true. I just showed you. What are you seeing there? You're seeing information warfare coming from what side? Not Israel. It's the other side, and it's highly effective. That's coming from China. China. And I keep having people send me information about, oh, Israel, the Jews, Rick, the Jews, they control Hollywood, do they? Oh, they have a lot of influence. Yeah, that's true. And that's an industry where they have, some real foothold, and there is a real history there. But you know what? I know a lot, here where I live, variety stores, a lot of them, huge number of them owned by Koreans. They have a Korean business association, a convenience store association here in Canada. It's very powerful. They formed this association so they can buy inventory, convenience store items, not just at wholesale prices, but at better than wholesale prices, because they get they buy together. So they get more volume, and they all benefit from it because they're smart. But it doesn't mean that there's anything sinister going on. It's just that that's an industry where, as a community, they've come together and they work together, and they've been building that up since they've been coming into the country more and more. And I don't have anything against it. And it's not to say that they're 100% all Korean-owned variety stores. It's not true. Not all the variety stores here are owned by Koreans. Down the street, a good friend of mine, she has a variety store, a convenience store. She's not Korean. But up the street, there is one that was owned by a Korean at the corner here, but now it's owned, he sold it about 6 months ago. New owner in there. He's not Korean. I'm not sure where he's from, honestly, because I don't go around asking people, where are you from? What's your nationality? What's your religion? He's just a nice guy. I go in there a couple of times a week where I buy bottled water. He filters it. He's got a water filtration center there, so you can get your filtered water. So that's where I buy my water, because I don't like the tap water. I don't like all the chemicals in it. And this stuff tastes way better, and we can talk about that another night. But the point is, it's a cliche to a degree. Like, it's just because a particular nationality or group of a community or diaspora is involved or has a high concentration of ownership in a given industry, it doesn't make it evil. And this whole media narrative that controlled by the Jews, not really. Case in point, China. I just showed you how China is having real influence online in a very real way, just with this disaster in Rafah over the last couple of days. And if you look at what's been going on in Hollywood, Hollywood is kind of, well, if they haven't taken over, they're well on their way. Back in 2020, the stats show that China became the world's biggest box office market for Hollywood films. So just a few nights ago, I was watching over the weekend, I was watching a movie. One of those rare occasions when I actually had a little time to sit hang out with my wife, and so we were watching this film, and it was called Page 8. And it was very timely, I thought, because they were casting the United States and Israel in as sort of the bad guys in this tale of spycraft. I don't know if you're aware or familiar with the film, and it seemed to me like it was something that maybe was made right now, because we hear so much negative talk about the United States and Israel, and how the U.S. is to blame for everything. Everything bad that happens to the United States is the United States' own fault, and everything that's bad around the world, that's because of the United States. And so I'm watching this film, and it's tying right into that, and really bad casting Israel and Zionism in a really bad light. And then I said to my wife, I said, when was this movie made? And I, as I recall, it came out as like either 2011 or 2013. And I went, whoa, because the storyline, you wouldn't have seen a movie with a script like that, with a theme like that, say back in the 1980s during the Reagan era. Would not have seen that. Back then, in the era of Reagan, it was very pro-American. You had movies come out like Top Gun with Tom Cruise. Basically a recruiting film for the Air Force and the Marines, right? Everybody wanted to be a Top Gun pilot. And Reagan brought back national pride. But today, it's cool to hate America. Even the people who call themselves patriots have no trust of government. I don't know, these candidates. The only one who doesn't want to tear down the system is Biden, and that's because he's corrupt as hell and he's exploiting the system. And the other two guys, they seem to want to tear it down, either because they have a genuine interest in ousting the deep state and restoring things, or they hate America just as much as the next American hater. And they want to destroy it too. You just can't tell who the good guys are and the bad guys anymore. But back during the Reagan era, it was like it was a rekindling of Americana. And it was a golden era as far as I was concerned. At least everybody felt good about it. Maybe it was a facade, maybe it was an illusion. But we sure did feel good about the country. And that was because of, honestly, a lot of that was propaganda too. Cliches, Americana, like it was in the 1950s. Leave It to Beaver. America and apple pie. America and apple pie. Felt good, didn't it? And the economy was better. Everything seemed more stable. Oh, there were problems. A lot of people on the left didn't like Reagan. I remember when he was, running the first time around for election. And the left was quaking in their boots, them lefties. And they didn't think he could win, but Ronnie Reagan, as they used to call him, because they tried to cast him as a warmonger, Ronnie Reagan, he did get elected. And on the Republican and conservative side today, he is idolized, isn't he? Sure is. Was it just an illusion? I don't think so. I think there was truth to it, too. Everything's a cliche when it comes to the world of politics, and politics itself is just a construct. It's just an idea that people support in the end. But, man, it was a better time. And now everything has shifted. I mean, you talk about Top Gun. The new Top Gun movie, it was censored by China. That sequel, which just came out. And it was a real good movie, but there was a scene, just as an example, of Tom Cruise, and he had on the back of his flight jacket a flag of Taiwan and a flag of Japan. And at because the Chinese government, the communist government of China, didn't want that on there. The studio caved in and deleted that off Tom Cruise's jacket. There were other influences from the Chinese in that movie too. And why is that? It's because China has become the biggest box office market in the world. And so if you want your film to run in China, you have to, that's right, cave in and do what they want, or they won't run your movie there. So in the 2010s, the Chinese company Wanda bought AMC for $2.6 billion and Legendary Entertainment for $3.5 billion. These are not Jewish companies. These are Chinese entertainment companies. In 2017, the number of movie screens in China, 50,766, surpassed that of the United States in 2020. And now it is the biggest movie market in the world. And so now they've been imposing all kinds of different censorship on the Hollywood movie machine. Over the past 20 years, we've seen that China has translated its economic leverage into real political might. Censors from China now routinely ask Hollywood studios to scrub scripts, finish movies with scenes that or rejig or re-edit scenes that might have images or dialogue in there that might be damaging to the communist system in China. It's a routine thing now. It's sort of a form of, well, it is definitely a form of censorship. We've seen all kinds of movies since around that time undergo Chinese censorship and editing. There was one movie in there in particular, something called a Pixel. I didn't see it, and it was like the movie has like an image of Pac-Man on the poster, and I think it was aimed mostly at kids. But there were some things in there that the Chinese government didn't like, so they went after that. Also, World War Z. Here, I'll bring up an image of that. World War Z. Now, here's the interesting thing, okay? A friend, just speaking to this person earlier today about this movie. They hadn't seen World War Z. I haven't seen it either. I've been aware of it. And let me show you what I'm talking about. This is... So World War Z, I think Brad Pitt was in it. There was supposed to be a sequel, and a lot of people have been waiting for this. It was a blockbuster hit, the original. And here, I'll show you. So, the sequel, though, has been canceled. Well, why is that? Whatever happened to World War Z 2? And this is on a site called Collider.com, and they're confirming what I'm telling you in a roundabout way. It says... right here, point 2. Well, here it says Brad Pitt and David Fincher's scheduling conflicts caused delays in making World War Z 2, and China's ban on zombie movies posed a major concern for World War Z 2, which already boasted an expensive budget that was concerning for the studio. They have a ban on zombie movies. Interesting, I was told that the plot line in this, get this, involves a virus and a vaccine that's used to infect people. And the movie also, in the sequel, the enemy was supposed to be China. The movie never got made. Other instances and confirmed confirmed information about Disney with some of their films, where they've actually made movies, and then at the urging of the Chinese government, they've kind of gutted them, and they were not really properly distributed, so they've suppressed the distribution of films. So World War Z basically didn't get produced because China didn't want it produced. And then people sit here and they keep saying, oh, Rick, the Jews control everything. They're to blame for everything. Really? Isn't that interesting? Because, you know, I'm seeing posts as well saying that, you know, who's to blame for the virus? Who's to blame for the vaccines? Who's to blame for everything? Israel, the Jews. But where did the virus come from? What did Trump say? What did Trump call the virus? Where did he say it originated? At what lab? I'm not going to say it here because we're on YouTube. There's some truth on both sides, but not absolute truth. This is information warfare. People are in a cloud. They're not getting it. Not figuring this stuff out. You think that it's all your government that's lying to you, and I keep telling you, you're only half awake. Yeah, sometimes your government lies to you, quite a bit, probably. Yes, your government spends a lot of money on propaganda. In fact, in Canada, I learned this in high school in a social studies class. The biggest spender on any kind of advertising, the biggest, like for advertising, nobody spends more than the federal government to advertise to the people. It's been that way probably forever because they understand the importance of controlling your mind. But what's going on online right now, more complicated than that. You're being bombarded with information from all sides, not just your own government, which is not always lying to you. Sometimes they are trying to give you information that is of value, like don't go in behind that police line because that forest is on fire, and if you go in there, you might die. That's a public service, and they're actually trying to help you. But people are so distrustful of government, a lot of people will go around the police line and go in there and risk their lives. That's how bad it is. And it's even worse than that, but that's because you're being bombarded with information like I just showed you. And a lot of people don't connect those dots. And why would you? Are you that distrustful of if you don't trust the mainstream media, and all the trust there has been undermined since the pandemic, people don't trust it anymore. Big mistake when they lied to people about a lot of things. That's why I don't lie to people, because you get caught in a lie and people aren't going to believe you anymore. So I do my absolute very best to be 100% honest. I'm not saying I don't make mistakes, but I do not knowingly lie to people. I try to handle information responsibly. I don't lie. Unfortunately, the mainstream media did engage in that kind of activity, and there's no question about it. And I know because I came from that camp a long time ago, before the pandemic. As a result, people don't trust them anymore. Now, everybody's vulnerable. Everybody that doesn't trust the mainstream media, they automatically assume that anything else they see from somebody who's independent must be telling you the truth. But the truth is, some of these independents are not independent at all. They're controlled by other governments. They're being paid. They're actually part of a network, whether it's China or some other country. You're getting it from all over the world. You need to be aware. I just showed you how, showed you why. And I just gave you some facts on how Hollywood is now controlled not by the Jews, but by other outside influences as well, like China. Because they understand the value of information, the power of it. You can win a war with information. Information is power. Russia, too, they've been spending an increasing amount of money on information warfare and propaganda. They allocated last year 1.6 billion equivalent US dollars on state media. That's just domestically. And the majority of media spending there, over half, was allocated to the three main agencies: All Russian State Television and Radio Broadcasting Company, RT, Russia Today, and one of the other major media outlets that they have there. But they're also spending record amounts on external information, and they've been increasing it every single year. Here, I can show you. Here's some headlines about that. Every government is engaged in this. Oops. There we go. Kremlin spent 1.9 billion US dollars on propaganda last year. The budget exceeded by a quarter. In 2022, the Russian Federation contributed 1.5 billion from the federal budget for mass media. They've been increasing it every year. I don't know what the budget is yet for this year. Don't have the total. And that's largely domestic spending, but they've got a lot more that they spend beyond that around the world. So I would say that, you know, they've come to realize that going to battle in the arena of information warfare is far more cost effective than going to war with bombs and missiles and guns and tanks and nuclear submarines. And Russia has suffered a lot of losses, just like Ukraine in the war over there. They talk about 500,000 Ukrainian soldiers and civilians killed. Every estimate that I've been seeing, an equal number of Russian soldiers have been killed too. Now, Russia has a much bigger military, a lot more soldiers to pull from, but they've been pulling people in and trying to get their numbers up. And I know that isn't entirely popular with a lot of people in Russia, because who the heck wants to go to war? Especially if you're just living your life and you'd rather not get involved in something violent like that. But, you know, they've got their challenges over there as well, and that's the truth. So they use information to shore up public support. Going to continue talking about that, but, you know, sort of on a related note, a lot of this distrust in media came because of the pandemic. And I know that a lot of people have been very, very focused on the World Health Organization and what's been going on over the last number of days with the efforts to negotiate a multinational pandemic treaty. A lot of people worried that any treaty like that would result in a loss of sovereignty for individual nation states, because the WHO would then be given, if passed in any kind of form that we've been hearing about, it would give the World Health Organization authority to dictate to all the countries that are signed on to this thing, dictate the procedures or the response to any future pandemics. A lot of people worried about that because of the way the last one was handled. Well, this, you know, I don't know, it didn't really surprise me to see this week that these negotiations have fallen apart. But Dr. Tedros at the WHO has come out and he said that, you know, he's still confident that eventually an agreement will be reached. So even though it has failed at this juncture, they're not giving up. What we're hearing now today is that they're going to extend the deadline for a negotiated settlement or agreement on this involving a lot of different nations. I'm not sure how many, but a lot. Okay. And they're now saying it could take anywhere from 5 months to 24 more months, so 2 years to negotiate an agreement on this. So if you're worried about this, you can breathe a little easier tonight because they haven't been able to pass it. Here's Tedros talking about it.
So that's really very important. We have given it your best. And as I said, the issue now is, okay, we are where we are. We have traveled a lot. We have progressed a lot, but where are the bottlenecks? And how can we recalibrate and move? I think that's very important. As you know, when we started, the reason you have decided to have a pandemic agreement was because of the impact of the COVID-19. We say on the record, more than 7 million people died, but actually that's underreporting. The estimates show that up to 20 million people died. And the whole world was taken hostage. And COVID has affected everybody. Everybody. I don't know if there was anyone who has not been affected by COVID in many ways. Not only losing loved ones, but economic problems, loss of jobs, you name it. So that's why you said, okay, this impact is because the world is unprepared. By the way, still is. And you said we have to do something. So the second message I have is we have to always remind ourselves that because we are human beings, when the pain is really less, we tend to forget and move on. But of course we should move on. But we should also remember the problem that happened and not really rest until the solution comes. So reminding ourselves of all the losses we had and to say never again is very important. So when we look for the challenges we have faced and finding solutions, I think that reminder will help. Then I see the assembly actually as a platform to re-energize this process, to be honest. And let's use it as a platform to give us more energy, inspire us. So my wish is we will come out of the assembly re-energized, inspired. We will try everything, believing that anything is possible, and make this happen. Because the world still needs a pandemic treaty, and the world needs to be prepared, because many of the challenges that caused the serious impact during COVID-19 still exist. Starting from equity, for instance, was the center of this negotiation. So still exist. And we should really prepare the world. So let's continue to try everything, and anything is possible. And as we always say, if there is a will, there is a way. So I'm still positive, to be honest, despite the outcome. That's what I am. That's what I believe. There could be hiccups. The issue is what do we learn from it and move. This is not a failure. Even when I fail, by the way, many times, I try to learn what happened and then move on. Failure doesn't stop us, should not stop us. But this is not failure. You have really done a lot. You have progressed a lot. I don't call it failure.
There were protests there. You had political groups demonstrating. There was, I believe, a vehicle, like a big billboard as well, that was driving around today or during the negotiations, expressing opposition to this deal. It's fallen apart. And that's because I think ultimately the people in charge don't want to give up their power. As much as they may be globalists, there's still that human greed that comes in and desire to be in control, especially when you're in control. So it just hasn't worked out quite the way that they were planning. So, yeah, we've got a little bit of a respite there. Now, where should I take it from here? Let's take a quick break, and then I'm going to regroup, and we're going to dig back into some of this information warfare stuff and some of the weird things that have been going on with Zelensky and Ukraine. It's pretty interesting. I'll be right back.
Feel the vibrations. Our quest continues. The truth is out there. We are Mavericks.
So the other night, Kevin was on, and we were talking about what's happened in Kharkiv. Do I still have those maps? Yeah, I'll show you the map again. Okay, here's Kharkiv. You see that black line that starts around the middle of the page and then goes out and about to the center and then comes down. So that's where Ukraine is. And Kharkiv is right near that black line. That's the border between Russia and Ukraine. That blue line, the arrow, shows how far away Kharkiv is from Moscow. Just to give you an idea of where it's located. So it's right on the border. And we have seen Russia intensify attacks there. They're also launching rockets or missiles into that area from Russia, which is why Ukraine is asking for permission to use U.S. weapons to strike back against those installations or targets in Russia, on the Russian side of the border. The United States has told Ukraine they can't do that. They can't use their weapons to strike inside Russia because they're afraid of escalation. Anyway, the UK has now told Ukraine that they can use UK weapons to do that. The United States has not. And some other countries are coming on board. Germany is opposed to it. So there's sort of division, at least at this point, as to what Ukraine will be allowed to do. Ukraine has been striking some targets inside Russia using drones, but not, apparently, not U.S. munitions that are restricted for that, against being used for that purpose. So that tees up what I'm about to tell you. So we've seen just in the last few days a market that was destroyed by a missile. Huge black smoke. We showed you the video. And I believe 16 people were killed there. So Kevin shared information which seemed to be coming from the Russian side saying that it wasn't just a civilian target, that shopping center, that it was a military target because there may have been munitions stored there. From everything I've seen, that has not turned out to really be the case. But I can't say with 100% certainty what the facts are because I can't see. I did show you security camera footage from inside the building last night, and that when the missile struck. And in Kharkiv, that entire area now is being it's being devastated. It's being leveled. A huge amount of damage to civilian homes, businesses, the entire area. It's just the way it's gone down. It's a war, and you're getting a lot of damage in this particular area right by the border. So, as a result, you're getting a lot of information warfare ramped up. One of the things that resulted from all of this is a publishing house, like a factory, a printing house, a printing factory where they produce books and magazines and so forth. One of the biggest ones in Ukraine was destroyed. And then there was this video of Zelensky that appeared to be him going through rubble and wreckage, and I saw that. And then we showed an interview that was being done as well, and Kevin came on, and he said, that looks a lot, to me, that looks like him on a green screen, suggesting that it's basically a fake propaganda film. From what I saw, I dug into it more. I've been digging into it more in the last couple of days because I do want to get down to the facts. And so one of the other things, I don't think he wasn't against a green screen. I know that he wasn't because I've been looking into it. Not to say that it's, I'm just getting you the facts. I said at the time, I don't know, man. I don't think that looks like it's a green screen. And I know now that it wasn't a green screen. They didn't need a green screen because I now know that it was shot on location. Now, I also know why Kevin said that he said what he said. It's because he could see that there was evidence of it being a studio. And that's true too. And I'll explain that in a moment. And that's important. And that's why he was of the opinion that he had. But what was this really all about? It's about that peace summit ultimately. But let me backtrack here a little bit. The peace summit that's coming up next month in Switzerland. The other reason that Kevin said, and others have been saying, that they think that that shopping center was being used to store munitions is because there were very few cars in the parking lot. But I also found this to show that that's not really a valid argument or a proper use of the evidence at hand, because immediately upon that missile strike, people left the parking lot. They were running and they all left in their cars. Here's footage to show that. They're all getting the heck out of there. They're running away. They drove away and they ran away. That's why the parking lot emptied. That
Что, прилет был?
Injured.
Прилет был?
So that's truth. That's real footage. That's not shot in a studio. That's what it looked like after the missile struck. Now, I know that some people are looking at this footage, and I'll see if I can find it for you. There's footage of Zelensky looking at a computer. It appears to be going over some sort of script and so on. And, oh, here's the footage, too, from inside. I'll show you this again, in case you missed it last night. This is inside the shopping center, security camera footage at the time of the missile impact. Definitely a civilian target. Several angles. And then, as I said last night when Joseph and Dragon were on, I also understand now why there may have been so much smoke, and that's because this was the main section of the building, housed a do-it-yourself hardware store full of paint, chemicals, building supplies, all of which can produce that kind of thick black smoke. So that explains the smoke. Also, my personal opinion, if it was filled with shells, munitions, you would have had much larger additional explosions, which would have been devastating for a much wider area rather than the single missile strike, destroying the building and setting that blaze. Now, what some people are saying is that Zelensky, being an actor, oh man, that isn't the right thing. There's footage of Zelensky, and he is looking at a computer screen. I had it here for you. Oh, you know why? It's because it's a video that I have to download. Okay. So let me show you this if I can get it for you. Let me take a quick pause, and it'll be queued up on the other side. Okay? So 60 seconds and I'll have it for you.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
All right, production on the fly. Who knows about video production? I do. Here it is. Here's the footage I was talking about of Zelensky going over what appears to be a script. See the drapes up behind there, the lights.
Слава Україні! Героям слава! Ой.
So the allegation here is that either it's like he's in a studio, okay? And then there was other video that we showed 2 nights ago of him sitting being interviewed, and there was like outside light pouring in from the back, and the background was blurred. Okay? So again, that led some people to believe that he was against a green screen. No, not against a green screen. Where he was in this publishing house, this publishing factory, a printing factory, where they produce books, magazines, and other printed materials. A huge building destroyed. What happened here, even though some people are trying to say, see, he's just an actor, it's all propaganda, it's all fake. No, it's very real. what happened is he went on location to that bombed out building. They took a film crew there. The reason the background was blurred in that interview was because they were using a cinema camera and or a DSLR and a lens that allows them to adjust the f-stop so that the focus becomes more critical and you have very shallow depth of field. I understand these things because I shoot video. I know video production. So if you were to shoot with just a regular camcorder, you don't get that kind of blurred background. But if you shoot with a cinema camera, let me show you one. These are shot on video. These are Blackmagic Design. Company called Blackmagic Design. There are a number of, you can shoot with red cameras. You can also get this effect even just shooting with, like I use Canon DSLRs. And these are not just regular video cameras. These are professional video cameras. This is the stuff they were shooting with on location, this kind of equipment. And so you can use lenses, different kinds of lenses, like you do on a DSLR camera. Digital single lens reflex to get critical depth of field, to give it the look of cinema. That's why the background was blurred. Probably using a 50mm lens and an f-stop that makes the focus critical so that things very close up, like his face is in focus, but then you get this beautiful blurred background behind. We used to do a similar thing when I was working in television. If you were out at night and we were doing like a political story or something, what we would do is the camera guy would go down the street. If we'd be shooting outside, a stand-up, and he'd go down the street and zoom in at night. And then what would happen is, as he zooms in with the broadcast television lenses, when you zoom in, it narrows the field of vision. You also end up with a more critical depth of field, and then all the lights behind look blurred, and they twinkle in the background. And it makes for a very pretty shot. And that's what we would do. So I understand depth of field. That's what Zelensky, that's why he appeared the way that he did. Now, what are all those lights doing there? When you're inside that building, they took the film crew there to produce some information and public relations style videos for this peace summit that's coming up next month. That's what he was doing. And when you're in the building, it's dark. But outside, because the walls are all blown out, you've got light bleeding in from behind. If you just shoot with a regular camera inside the building and you don't have any lights, he'll look dark. He'll be in silhouette and the background would be properly exposed. If you don't have light inside, what you have to do is overexpose the background to get proper exposure inside so that his face shows up. So you open up the iris and you would actually get crappy depth of field. It'd be very uncritical, but what that would have looked like is the background would have been completely white, overexposed, foreground in focus, and him properly exposed. That's a trick in broadcast that you use as well, but that's not what they did. They brought lights in, which you saw in that video right here. Look again. See that see that light right there? See that light right behind, right over his head, right there, top left-hand corner. That's a studio light that they brought in for this purpose, on location. Why do they have those black curtains up? That's not a movie studio. They put those up because they brought the film crew there, and you've got blown out walls, so they blocked the light coming in from that side, so they got proper exposure when they were shooting. I'm a professional videographer. I know what I'm talking about. And this is helpful when you're trying to figure out what's going on with information warfare. I can tell exactly what they're doing here. And what's he doing here? Yes, he's looking at a computer, and yes, they are looking at a script. And so what they've done is, you see over there to the side, I'll run it again here. Now look over on the left-hand side. See behind there now? There's light bleeding in. And look, we're going to turn around the other way. See all the light? That's where he was sitting for that other interview. You've got the whole roof gone. You have exposed outdoor light. They have all these wood pallets up there because there's crap on the floor. And they're walking on those because it's a disaster zone, essentially, okay? And so to get proper exposure, because he was sitting with his back to the outside, and the reason this is properly exposed is because that light, these lights are on, these studio lights that they brought in. That's how they got the proper exposure. That's why the depth of field was the way it was, not a green screen. Just maybe a minor point, but it's a major point because it's not like he was sitting there in a studio faking everything. They went on location to the printing factory to show the damage, and he really was there. It's not fake in that regard. So what was he producing? Well, this is why I also know that what I'm telling you is true. It's because he did produce a bunch of videos for this peace summit that's coming up next month in Switzerland. He wants world leaders to attend this thing. And I've been digging into it a little bit more to find out why it's important. It's being just kind of snubbed and ignored by some, and people on the, I would say the anti-Ukrainian side. They're trying to discredit it because Russia's not going. You know who else isn't going? Biden. I found out Biden isn't going to this peace summit. But why is it important? Or is it important? I think it is important. It could be help forge a path to peace. Putin is saying that he wants a ceasefire with the current lines drawn where they are right now. He's making this, has made this statement in advance of what is supposed to come next month. But it is important because, as I understand it, there are 80-some countries that will be attending. Now, why isn't Vladimir Putin going? Because I think it has been misrepresented in the media for what it really is. And certainly people on the other side maybe don't understand, or they're just outright, distorting the facts to try to make the entire thing illegitimate in the minds of the public. But what's really going on, he's trying to build support, a coalition, if you will, of an international coalition, so that they can go to the peace table with the support of other nations, so that they're not walking into peace negotiations with a losing hand, showing that they have the support of other countries. You see, he's trying to bolster his leverage going into this so that Ukraine gets a better deal. That's what this is really about next month. So was there to produce these videos talking about the cultural genocide of Ukraine. If you live in Canada, you're hearing a lot about cultural genocide as it relates to First Nations, right? Well, the people who live in Ukraine have similar concerns about their culture. So Zelensky, see if I can find the video here, show you what some of the stuff that they've been producing here. Did I lose this again? I shouldn't have. I should be here. Well, let me go. I've got the video of him. Here we go. I'll bring it out of here. I had it queued up. They disappear on me sometimes because we have so many of them. So Zelensky, in the studio, Zelensky. Again, give me 60 seconds. I'll find it for you. I do apologize. Just way too much information.
Hello, world. Are you awake? Uniting humankind. by liberating millions of minds at a time. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, I have it here for you now. And, I'll preface this by saying this is, it's got music, it's production, it is what it is, okay? This is like an advertisement. This is propaganda, if you will, so I'm just going to preface it that way. But it's more than that. It's not like the glorification of death in this way. He's talking about, well, I'll let him speak for himself, but just understand that this is produced and he has a particular agenda here. But the overarching thing here is this is a message to world leaders, not just to you. He wants people to come to this thing next month, this summit, peace summit.
For them, it is a pleasure to burn. We all know who are we dealing with. Russia is run by men who want to make it a norm, burning lives, destroying cities and villages, dividing people and erasing national borders through war. There is no nation that can stop such war alone. Unaided world leaders' engagement is needed. I'm now in Kharkiv, a city in the east of Ukraine, and unfortunately very close to the border on Russia. What does it mean for Kharkiv? A third year of constant terror. More than 1 million of people in this city. And every night and every day, Russian army is shelling the city, mostly with S-300 missiles. These are air defense missiles which Russia employs to terrorize the land. There is not a single district or street in the Kharkiv that hasn't suffered from this regular cruelty. Russia added strikes with guided aerial bombs. Russian aviation comes close to our state border and launches these bombs straight on the city. It is a weapon of indiscriminate destruction. And anyone in any city of the world, from Sao Paulo to Harbin, take this the same way as terror, just like all other Russian strikes on hundreds of other of our cities and villages. Some of them, once booming with life, are now burned to ashes, people less. A burnt out emptiness, the most horrible consequence of war. War that we didn't want in Ukraine, that we haven't provoked, and in which Ukraine is defending itself from Russian attempts to seize our resources and territories and destroy our national identity. And the world sees it. Behind me are the books burned down by Russian missiles. It was one of the largest publishing houses in Ukraine. People got injured here. Unfortunately, there are people killed. Temperature of burning here hasn't managed to totally reach for 451 degrees Fahrenheit. But that's what the leaders of Russia need and want, even higher temperatures. And not only on the sovereign territory of Ukraine, Russia is threatening almost all of its neighbor countries. Russia is the only state that captured the nuclear power plant and is openly using it for radiation blackmail. There is nothing that wouldn't become a weapon for Russia, including hunger. And exactly this the world felt when Ukraine was hit by Russian naval blockade. Russia is the only source of aggression and constantly tries to expand the war. Right now, these days, we are defending ourselves 60 kilometers northeast from this place, from yet another attempt of the Russian assault. Russia is preparing for offensive actions also 90 kilometers northwest from here. They gather another group of troops near our border. The one who does all this doesn't want peace. Does Russia want a dialogue? Ukraine had the world's largest experience of lies from Russian during negotiations. Lies that in particular was Russian cover-up for preparing this war. And that's exactly why global efforts are needed. Global Peace Summit of the leaders whom Russia will not be able to deceive. Summit that will show who in the world really wants to end the war and not just claim the ceasefire, which will inevitably be broken by Russian rockets and artillery, just like as it was dozens of times before. Together with Switzerland, we are preparing such summits. It starts on June 15th. More than 80 countries confirmed they will come. And we continue to work with the leaders, inviting them to join the summit. I thank everyone who really helps to bring the peace. And I am appealing to the leaders of the world who are still aside of the global efforts of the Global Peace Summit. To President Biden, the leader of the United States, and to President Xi, the leader of China. We do not want the UN Charter to be burned down just like these books. And I hope you don't want to either. Please show your leadership in advancing the peace, real peace, not just a pause between the strikes. The efforts of global majority are the best guarantee that all commitments will be fulfilled. Please support the Peace Summit with your personal leadership and participation. For all of us, it should be a pleasure to make peace.
I'm still here.
Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, let's take just a closer look at a couple of aspects of that video. So what I told you about exposure, there he is.
People, nation that can.
This is what I'm talking about. You see how it's blurred behind him? In other portions of the other interview, which was shot in the same location, it's even more blurred, and that's because they zoomed in more on him. And you see how it's properly exposed in the foreground and the background, even though he's standing inside where it's darker? That's because they have the studio lights. It's not a green screen. It's not fake. He is on location. This is him on location. See here? That's not a green screen. That's not a studio. That is the printing factory. I'll tell you something else.
All and destroy our.
You know what I noticed about this video? They showed a body being carried from the wreckage. But did you notice what they did? I did. Let me slow this down. Take note. Take note of this. To me, it's important. Look at what they've, right there. What did they do? They blurred the image of the body. You know what that says to me? It says somebody has not yet lost their humanity, and they still have a moral compass. You know what I'm seeing on other social media channels, especially on pro-Hamas channels? I'm seeing right out, flat, gross, mutilated bodies. No blurring. Absolute shock value, and then they add production to glorify it. You know what that says to me? That's real. I appreciate that. I'm still in the middle of the road, though. Still in the middle of the road. Some of my friends might not want to hear that. And they maybe don't want to see what I'm showing you. But truth is truth. And it goes beyond truth, doesn't it? These old labels of fascism, communism, the old alliances, the pointing back to World War II saying, oh, look at that happened in 1940, whatever. We're after the war and this and that. Better start looking at today. Better start looking in the mirror. Better start looking at your own darn country. Better start looking at where we're going. What's in your head? How did it get there? What are you really thinking? Why do you think that? Who's the real enemy? What is it that you're supporting or opposing? Is it as simple as what you think it is? Every day it's an evolution for me. It's another piece of the puzzle that comes together and fits in, and I learn more. And my opinions, my views on things change, and I never wanted this war to start. I didn't have to start. Both sides could have done things to prevent this from happening. But it didn't. Even Roger Waters, who's very pro-Russian, said from the beginning that Russia has no business, really, being in Ukraine. He's against Russia being in there. But at the same time, he also sees that NATO has a lot of responsibility and blame here too. I'm sort of that mind, although I don't agree with him on a lot of other things. It has to stop. This thing in Switzerland, Biden should get his ass over there. I don't care if Russia's not invited or if they were and they're not going or whatever the heck is good. Anybody that wants to sit around and talk about peace, go. Get it done. If that's at least a starting point in order to create some sort of a foundation for the beginning of negotiations with Russia, go. Trudeau's going. He should. They should all go. Russia should go too. I don't know why they're not. I want to learn more about it. I want to talk to people more about that thing in Switzerland, this peace summit, global peace summit coming up next month. What can be done with that? What can that help somehow? What can we do to make that successful? Anything to get this thing to stop. Is Vladimir Putin sincere when he says that he wants a ceasefire with the current lines drawn? I said a couple of weeks ago, maybe even longer, a month ago, now would be a good time to stop. Is he sincere? Zelensky says he doesn't think that Putin is. What about the West? I don't know. But at least get some people together, put them in a room, kick them in the butt, come up with a solution to end this thing. And I appreciate you blurring that image. They didn't have to. They could have gone for shock value to rattle people's cages. And I said the other night, they really suck at the PR game, because what are they talking about here? They're talking about burned books. Fahrenheit 451. Look up the novel. To the Ukrainians, it's important. It's their culture. It's their way of life. It's who they are. It's their identity. I get it. But people here in the West, do you care that they're burning their books, destroying their culture? Probably not. It's not going to resonate with people here. They're not going to get public sympathy for that. It's not dead babies. Or isn't it? I mean, indirectly, you destroy a nation's culture. You bomb what they are, who they are. You're destroying who they are, right? Look at what's gone on in Canada with First Nations and the cultural genocide that we're told happened through residential schools and so on. Well, they're just a bunch of Nazis. No. Are there Nazis there? Yeah. Are there Nazis here? Yeah. Are there Nazis in the United States? Yeah. Are there neo-Nazis in Russia? Yeah. They're all over the place. You don't like them? Well, they live among us. But it doesn't mean they're all Nazis. And Ukraine, like it or not, is a nation state. Vladimir Putin might not like it, and he might not like that they want to join the European Union and ultimately NATO, but it doesn't really give him the legal right to go into that country and dictate. Although, I've said before, that you have to live with the reality of being next door to a superpower. And they don't want NATO on their doorsteps. I get all of this. But legally, no other country has the right to invade another country that is recognized as a sovereign nation. Period. That's what's going on in Ukraine right now. People forget that. Somehow the information campaign has become so powerful that we have people over here rooting for Putin. I'm in the middle of the road because I want peace and I want this to stop, and I wish it never had started. And I understand, I see both sides. I understand. We got to get to a solution, though. And I'll tell you, Ukraine, like Israel, like the West, losing the information war. We're losing the war. We're losing ourselves. We hate ourselves, we hate our country, we hate our government, we hate everything that is in the West now, so many of us. We complained just a few years ago that they were tearing down our statues and assaulting our heritage. And yet here I see people who a few years ago were complaining about it and alarmed by it, rooting for it. People need to shake their heads and wake the hell up and get your head screwed back on straight, even if it's only for self-preservation. It's on full display at the Libertarian Convention over the weekend. What a mess. What a bloody mess that has been. I'll come back to that in a moment. I do want to provide balance here, though, because as much as people in Kharkiv have been suffering under a constant barrage of Russian attack, I know that people in Belgorod are suffering as well. And that's because we have... maybe I don't know if I've got the video or not. We have Ukraine attacking that area, and we've had casualties there as well. See if I can find it here. So I just want to be fair, okay? Yeah, so here's, this is not the video that was sent to me originally, but here's footage inside a hospital where some people were taken after missiles came down, I guess. It says residents complain that civilian hospitals are overcrowded with wounded Russian invaders. Medical personnel don't have time to provide assistance to other civilians or orcs yet. Yes, President Zelensky is right. It says Russian losses are 8-1 in favor of Ukraine. Maybe that's not what I was going to show you. This is all Ukrainian stuff coming up here. And that's the one around. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be so disjointed here. Okay, so here's the other side, okay? This is like a Russian perspective on what's going on in Belgorod, so I'll run this. So they're saying that the Ukrainian army did this. They're claiming that they've targeted the city center, claiming that they've done it intentionally to kill innocent civilians. Is that true? I don't know. From what I just saw, here's just footage. From that smoke comes the fog of war. What was the real motivation behind the attack? Was this an accident? Was the missile strike on that shopping center just the result of poor targeting? Was it done intentionally? One would think that probably it was intentional, but Did they think they were hitting him? I don't know. Who knows? But innocent people are being caught in the middle. Enough. I'm in the middle of the road. I'm afraid to look in the chat because there are probably some people in there running me over right now. Go ahead. Go ahead. You want cheerleading? Go to another channel. You want truth? You want journalism? Stay here. You want BS? You want to get yourself into your echo chamber? Go somewhere else. There's plenty of people doing that. I'm not going to do that here. You know why? Because innocent people are getting caught in the middle. And we need truth, and we need to figure out what we need to do to stop the killing. That's where I'm at, folks. Solutions. Let's find them together. Let's take a break. We're going to move on from this stuff. Sorta. When we come back. I'll be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow, maybe too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay. North Korea has announced plans to launch a rocket to carry a military spy satellite into orbit. This involves an 8-day span. And they issued this information, posted this, let South Korea and Japan know, but they're not happy. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida met Chinese Premier Li Qiang in Seoul for their first trilateral meeting in more than 4 years. And all this is going on at the same time. So Japan's Coast Guard says it received notification from North Korea that it is planning this launch of a satellite rocket. This, I would say, leads to just a little bit more destabilization geopolitically because of, the proliferation of technology and military capability to more and more countries. And nuclear technology, right? So you see the emergence here now of North Korea as an emerging potential superpower with nuclear capability, spy satellites, maybe soon hypersonic missiles to go with that. Hypersonic technology, maybe, which Iran now possesses thanks to Russia. Everything has changed. And it's a much more dangerous world. And if Iran gets nuclear weapons, if they don't already have them, it will further destabilize things. And isn't it interesting to listen to these pro-Iranian influencers sit there, like the great George Galloway, who says that it would be a good thing for Iran to have nukes. He's lost his mind, if he ever had it. No, we don't need more countries with nukes. It seriously complicates things. just the hypersonic missile technology alone has been very destabilizing in the Middle East. And I have to wonder, too, if that hasn't been a factor in the decisions that have been made by Israel affecting the way that they have been conducting themselves in Gaza. I don't know. I don't know. Fear, man, it's a powerful thing, isn't it? So, North Korea rattling their sabers. We saw how Donald Trump dealt with that. Today in Canada, Susan Stevenson, the chairman of the Committee on the Protection of Political Freedoms in Iran, and Shahram Golenstene, a representative of the Iran Democratic Association, held a news conference in Ottawa. They were there to talk about the implications of the death of Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi in that helicopter crash that we've been covering here. They're calling on the Canadian government to designate the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps a terrorist entity. That's interesting. Let's run a little bit from that news conference today. And here she is.
Conducted a reign of terror on the Iranian people for far too long.
Yeah, let me bring you some of that.
An intergroup author and international lecturer on the Middle East and human rights. It is time that Canada called the IRGC exactly what they are, a terrorist organization. And I stand here today calling for Canada to do that, but also calling for other democratic countries, including the UN, to also name the IRGC for what they are, a terrorist organization. President Raisi had conducted a reign of terror on the Iranian people for far too long. We need to, not only for the Iranian people, but for the stabilization of the Middle East. The terrible loss of lives in Israel and Gaza is a direct result of Iran and the IRGC's actions. It's time to make the voices of the Iranian people heard now, especially the Iranian women, in particular, who have rebelled against compulsory religion, compulsory government, and the compulsory hijab as just a few small examples. They will be freed from the shackles of oppression, and they will tread the path of progress and equality in a free Iran. Change is within reach for the Iranian people, but more importantly, and just as importantly, it would be a question of eliminating the human rights abuses and the terror that thousands of Iranian young men and women live every day under the fear of that regime. And it's all led by the IRGC. I will now call on Mr. Shahram.
Okay, you've got the idea. We don't need to get into too much more of that. What else do we have here for you tonight? Interesting. Okay, so Alex Jones has gone ballistic on RFK Jr. Kind of weird. Makes me wonder what's the motivation behind this. He's been sort of, like, I kind of like RFK Jr. I like Trump too, but I like RFK up until now. Strange, isn't it? Why now? We saw over the weekend RFK Jr. and Donald Trump speaking at the Libertarian Convention. First RFK Jr., I think that he was, he's more palatable to the libertarians. And then Trump comes along on that was Friday. Then Trump comes on Saturday, delivers his speech to a raucous crowd some MAGA supporters in the audience, and then a lot of them just came to heckle and boo and jeer Trump, and tons of that in the crowd. But he got through it, and I thought personally that he did pretty well, given that the crowd was overall pretty hostile toward him. And behind him it says, "Become ungovernable." That's the graphic that the Libertarian Party had up on the stage. What a dysfunctional group they are, I'll tell you. Talk about anti-American, anti-government, anti-everything. Like, I don't know. Some patriots in there, I guess, but overall, they just don't seem to like anything or anybody. And it's just a mishmash of anarchists, communists, fascists, conservatives, liberals, progressives, people from the outcasts from the Democrats. I don't know, what a mess. But the one thing they have in common is they all distrust government and they don't like authority. That's about it. That's the only common denominator. In the end, it was Trump disqualified because he didn't even file paperwork, and he says he did it on purpose because he's not allowed to seek the nomination of another party because he's the presumptive GOP nominee. So if he took that, he couldn't have the GOP nomination, I guess. So he says if it wasn't for that, I would have won for sure. I would have had the Libertarian nomination too. I don't think so. Because they heckled him so much. They only brought him there so they could shout at him. That's at least 3/4 of them. And then he brought some of his own people, and that's what really helped him in the audience. On the RFK Jr. side, he was kicked off the first ballot. So I think they're upset with him because of his position on Gaza, myself. And a lot of the people, even in his own campaign, have come this close, and a lot of them, I think, have left him because of his position on Gaza. So he's been picking up support largely from Trump. The Trump side, the Trump supporters. I think, even though polling suggests it's the other way around, I think that's wrong. Totally wrong. Well, who knows? He is pretty progressive on just about every other file, right? And on most issues, he's pretty progressive. It's just the vaccines. That's the one thing that doesn't sit well with the Democrat side. Anyway, I digress. So who did they end up nominating to be their presidential contender? Chase Oliver. And so now the knives are out for him. This is their guy, and so now they're posting. I'm seeing all these posts about Chase Oliver, and people are coming after him now. Not that he's like a threat to anybody, from what I'm seeing, man. As far as I can tell, this guy's sort of a no-name. I think Trump was right. They're just going to get their regular 3%. But those who are opposed to him are now pointing out the inconsistencies in his policies over time. This politician, who has been involved in politics at different levels over time, has previously expressed support and has participated even in rallies for organizations like Black Lives Matter, even though he's claiming to be a libertarian. Anyway, here's a clip, and I'm not even sure what's in it. I'm just kind of running this thing blind, but this is not I don't believe this is from the convention. This is from another event where a poster is just trying to outline what this guy really stands for.
So I'm here to talk about not just the injustice that Cop City brings, but what militarization of police brings to us. I was in the streets in summer of 2020 when we were peacefully protesting the murder of George Floyd, the murder of Breonna Taylor and others. And it was the Atlanta police who decided to bring the tanks rolling down the street and who decided to call in the National Guard. It was y'all who corralled us. It was y'all who were pepper spraying and tear gassing us. It was the police who were pulling people out of their cars and arresting them for no reason other than the fact they were lost on the night of the protest. And so what does the police get in reward for that? $67 million of taxpayer money to fund your facility? That's ridiculous. I don't think it's right to be giving you $1 until you restore trust with the people. And the way you do that is pretty simple. You do that by by ending qualified immunity for the Atlanta City Police so that we can get our day in court when we're done wrong. You do that by requiring your officers to hold liability insurance. So when they do wrong, it doesn't come out of the taxpayer's pocket from other services. It comes out of the pockets of the police officers who have to pay for those insurance policies. If you want to hold police accountable, there's a lot of ways to do it. But clear-cutting forests so that you can build this facility is a spit in the face of the people who have been out here speaking against it for months and months on end. Take a poll, read the room, listen to the people, and you will see that they don't want this.
That's him in Atlanta. He's from Atlanta, and he was involved in municipal politics there, and that was about building a public facility, a municipal facility, I think, for police, and he was opposed to it because they were going to cut some trees down. So that's interesting. What else did he have to say? I don't know. Doesn't really matter. Anyway, that's their guy. Will he win? Nope. Will it be a spoiler? He won't get that much support, I don't think. The Libertarians, I guess they were trying to stick to their principles and not endorse or nominate a Republican or a former Democrat, either one of those two guys, to represent them in the upcoming presidential election. Now, it is interesting, though, I think, to see Alex Jones now at this time, in this period in the presidential election, in the race, to come out and go full nuclear on RFK Jr. Hang on here. Let me get this queued up for you. I'll just give you a little taste of this. And when we come back on the other side, he goes off on RFK Jr. and he's basically declared war on the guy. We'll have to assess this and figure out why.
Hello, world. Are you awake? Uniting humankind by liberating millions of minds at a time. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, here's the clip.
Got an update on stuff. I saw today that RFK accepted his nomination virtually. I guess he was there on Friday. Great. I thought it was weird he wasn't there. I don't know what to make of it. But if people want to sit there and defend RFK, we'll just get into him being pro-gun control. We'll just get into him saying he wants to take the guns from people. We'll get into him supporting all of that. We'll get into him saying he wants to arrest people that deny climate change. Okay? In fact, I'm going full warpath on RFK Jr. How about that? Starting tomorrow. So get ready.
I'm ready.
Because all he's going to do is suck votes from Trump. He admits he funded people to attack Trump at that event. And so I reported on him taking the nomination virtually. That is a fact. But because you guys want to defend RFK, full war, guaranteed, all week long, get ready. Clips of him saying arrest people that disagree with climate change up your rear end. Get ready for it. I'm sick of the libertarians. I'm sick of everybody on the fence. I'm sick of people bleeding votes away from Republicans when Republicans are the best house in a bad neighborhood and Trump is giving the New World Order a run for their money. So I pledge to you total attack on RFK Jr. starting tomorrow. You got what you want. You're getting it now with your plastic chickens and your dumbass libertarians and all the rest of them. Burn in frickin' hell.
Yeah, they were handing out those rubber chickens at the Libertarian Convention so that they could hold them up and squeak them during Trump's speech didn't work. Didn't make a difference. He still came out of it looking okay. Oh man. Oh man. Interesting development. Now, why would Alex Jones do that? What do you think? I'm going to look in the chat. I'm going to get brave here for a second. Does anyone have any idea why Alex Jones would do that right now, at this point in the election? Let me scroll down and look in here. Share your thoughts. Tell me what you think. I'll put it up on the screen. Tell me. What do you think? Why? No idea. Cindy says no idea. I have an idea. Choosy says Alex Jones is welcome at any time to prove me wrong and go full tilt peaceful Carnation Revolution Olympian. In the meantime, he looks like a Knights of Malta thespian. Lori says Trump's Secret Service literally confiscated the rubber chickens before his speech. Did they do that? There you go. Now there's a good use for the Secret Service. Okay, hands up. Drop your rubber chicken. Dragon says he is triggered. He was, wasn't he? That's it. Drop your rubber chicken. All of you. Chickens down. That's funny. Oh, I didn't know that they did that, but thank you for letting me know. That's important information. Why would they do it? Well, for some reason, I don't know why. I'm seeing a dollar sign here. And it looks like maybe we lost our feed to our main channel here tonight. Isn't that weird? Let me just see if we're still running. No, we're still running, I guess. We're still live. Yeah, we're okay. We lost one of our channels. I know that. I saw. What channel is it that did we lose? Instagram. Lost Instagram. Oh, well. Laurie says she's not. I believe you. Really, I do. I believe that they would do that. You never know. Those rubber chickens could have been loaded. What a weird election. What a strange election. What's in the chat over here on the main Rumble channel? Anybody have any idea? Oh, Johnny, thank you for the $2, even though you disagree with me on the university protests. That's okay. You're allowed to disagree with me. David Doyle says, rubber chickens, what an attack. Trump's Stoic teacher says, chuckles at your Jones impression, Rick. It's funny. Oh, yeah. Well, I see dollar signs. I'm thinking maybe someone made a big donation to InfoWars. And that wouldn't surprise me at all either. I can't prove it. I'm just saying, well, he's not going to endorse Biden for sure. But Magic Moon says, Alex does have insights. Sometimes he seems to. And Rising Dragon says, Proud Boys with chickens are dangerous. It is funny. Well, that gets us to a time in the evening when I am inclined to wrap things up. And I thank you guys all for hanging out here tonight and being part of this experience. I will be back tomorrow night. Same time, same channel. Thank you, everybody. Really a privilege as always. 7 p.m. Eastern Standard. That's when I'll return. On the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.